Good morning, Richard. We've taken a break from our conversations here at the college. We both had time away in August, and then you've kind of hit the ground running back in September with some people you've shown around. We talk about the conflict, or we feel the conflict as absolutely intractable, almost predictable, kind of stuck. Things just seem to be the same all the time, and yet they are moving at such a fast rate right now. The headlines every week is different. So certainly by the end of the summer, July, August to now, what are some of the changes that you've seen, you've sensed, you felt, you're reading about, we're reading about in the news? Kind of give us a sense of where we are now.
Well, you're right that things are moving fast, and yet can seem stuck, but they're not stuck at all. And actually, it's interesting. I think when you've been away for a few weeks and you come back into it, you realise that not only are events changing, but also the mood is changing. Okay. Or maybe also you get used to a mood, and then when you go away and you sort of decompress and breathe a little, you come back and it hits you. And I think more than ever before, when I returned from UK holiday this time, I was really hit by the sense of bleakness, of oppressiveness, and people were talking, the taxi driver on the way back, who I know well, talking in a way I'd not heard him speaking before, about a sense of absolute loss of optimism for the future. And that was repeated over and over. And so within the first few days, although I came back fresh and renewed, I did have a sense that this was hitting me hard as well. And we have to find ways to sustain ourselves when the mood in the news is so dark and bleak and very difficult. But I think we're aware that things globally are changing, because maybe with the United States government really wanting just to stay closely tied to Israel, and resistant to other moves to try to bring Gaza to a swifter end, and other elements that many other powers, European powers and others, actually moving individually or away from American policy. Before it was always let America take the lead and others come in after, and that has proved very, very damaging. So we've just seen actually 8 or 9 nations at the UN General Assembly in New York, and actually just before, recognizing Palestine as a state. And that would sort of have been impossible to imagine without America also doing it. And that creates both a sense of positive moving, but also that there's going to be some negative reaction, because on the whole Israel does not take these things lying down and does not relent. So we're waiting to see what the reactions are going to be about that. But yet definitely I think we are in a state where Gaza is moving into even high. It's hard to imagine that it would get worse, but with the Israel Defense Forces move into Gaza City, our fear of the Christian communities which are based there, the 2 Christian enclaves, compounds are there, our hospital is there, and the heavy fighting and the bombing and blasting and destroying of buildings is in the immediate vicinity. So every day we're looking at the news to see, are they safe? Are they fleeing? No, they've said they're going to stay, and many hundreds of thousands of people have said, we're not moving this time. We're either going to live here and survive here, or we're going to die here. So we're on tenterhooks and really nervous, on the edge, looking for the news day by day about that.
Well, I mean, it's almost 2 years, and we're very close to the 2-year anniversary. Even before October 2023, we've had years and decades of violence, different cycles. Sometimes they're very seasonal, but we've had it just constantly. That said, even this week, entering into the season of Jewish festivals and holidays. And sometimes that actually is you can almost predict there's going to be tensions. And I don't want you to predict necessarily, but could you talk a little bit about how the holiday season, I don't know if it frames conflict or creates conflict or becomes a time that things can be overly tense, because those are Jewish holidays, the Muslim holidays are more kind of cycle around the year. But could you speak a little bit about where we are and what we might at least be looking at in the news as we go through the next few weeks of the Jewish holidays?
Well, definitely it creates heightened sensitivities. And of course, all religions have that capacity to be a powerful force for good and actually a powerful force for bad, for evil, you might say. And these Jewish holidays can inflame the extremists
of either side,
exactly.
possibly.
No, it can do. And one of the great areas of tension, growing tension, and for me, increasing concern, is the place of the Al-Aqsa compound, sometimes called Haram al-Sharif, the noble sanctuary, and in Jewish terms is known as the Temple Mount. And so the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock are on the site of what Jews understand as Temple Mount.
Yes.
And there is a growing movement calling for the re-establishment of a Jewish temple. I mean, it's the most frightening sort of idea, but it's gaining traction with certain branches of Jews here in the land and actually around the world, and by leading politicians who support that. And so in these few days of holidays, there will be far higher numbers of people, Jewish people, going onto Al-Aqsa and openly praying in contravention of the status quo agreement that says that anybody may visit, but there should not be open prayers by any religion other than Islam on the Islamic holy place. And so that ripples around the world, those visions of people going and doing provocative acts, using faith as a means of provoking the other side. But interestingly, I think these days for me are also a time for building and strengthening our links and connections with our other faith communities.
And you were recently at a two-day conference with the Rabbis for Human Rights.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And it was an interfaith retreat. They called it a retreat, but it was a bit like a conference.
Okay.
Held at Tantur, where we're great friends with the Roman Catholic institution there. And so there were Jews, Muslims, Christians of different denominations, Druze also, and some minority groups within those broader religions, all focused on human rights as the need of the moment. And Rabbis for Human Rights are leading the way by calling their own people, their own faith, into a better understanding of what the Jewish faith calls, how they are called to live in respect of all people. And this, I think, is proving to be a very fruitful engagement for us at the college, for the wider Christian community, to find a place where we're not just doing interfaith dialogue, comparing scriptures and traditions, but we're actually looking at what we do and how we engage with this awful conflict and find in all of our faith traditions the best of us. That the bits of our traditions, our faith, our scriptural understandings that will build justice towards a better land and towards better understanding. And this is something that I think has tremendous scope for leading us into a better place. But it's a hard work, and we need to dig deep to do that.
Let me ask a final question, because you went with the same group, but it's also something very much in the news, and that is kind of the Israel announcing that they're going to continue to build settlements east of here in an area called E1, which is an area that they've kind of refrained a little bit from developing, but could you introduce us to that policy or statement that Israel's recently made and what you saw when you went with them to this E1 area?
Well, it's so controversial because it's the last block that would create a circle of Jewish settlements around Jerusalem and would cut off the Palestinian communities in East Jerusalem from the rest of the West Bank. So it would prevent contiguous development between East Jerusalem and the rest of the northern West Bank. And so it's seen as a sort of a spoke in the wheels of the idea of a two-state solution. And Israel in recent weeks has reintroduced the idea of finally starting the building work there. So we, with Rabbis for Human Rights, went to visit some of the Bedouin communities that are in danger of being uprooted, displaced and pushed away with no alternative place to live, just made homeless, and talking to them and hearing from them. And it was a very powerful experience of people who feel their vulnerability is finally coming to a head and terrified that bulldozers are just going to come in and sweep away their lightweight sort of temporary structures. And yeah, I think it leaves us all with a deep sense of impending fear for these coming weeks and months, and we need to keep the international community focused on these details beyond the devastation of Gaza and the general situation in the West Bank. There are really significant details affecting small communities, and that's really our day-to-day life.
Yeah. When I know our listeners and our community might have some follow-up questions, but part of our conversations is to talk about the current events, what's on the ground, and so as we continue to do this, we'll be asking each other the very same questions. Thank you.
Thank you.